This week, Samsung is blanking out, Valve is going out of the house, and Amazon is headed out of this world. It's Sunday, July 18th, 2021, and this is episode 599 of F5 Live, Refreshing Technology, a proud part of the Tech Podcast Network. If it's tech, it's here. Wherever you are and however you're accessing our show, whether it be on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or Snapchat, through a podcatcher like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, TuneIn, or a myriad of other options, through our live stream platforms. That's not it. That's not it at all. There we go. Livestream.com, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter, or on our website, PLUGHITZlive.com. Thank you for making us a part of your day. There are two ways that you can do that. The first is on Sunday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern. You can go to f5live.tv/join us. There you can chat with us during the show and give your feedback on the topics as we talk about them. If you can't do that, you can always subscribe by going to PLUGHITZlive.com/subscribe. There you'll see all of our shows, including F5 Live, The Piltch Point, PLUGHITZ Live Presents, and a whole lot more. And of course, you can find all of the different ways to watch, listen, and follow along. Well, we did a Monday show this week, and now we're back with a normal Sunday show, except we've also got Alante back, which is fantastic. So we got a good show set up for you. First, Avram, how have you been since we last talked?
Not bad. 3D printing a lot more stuff,
Of course,
as you can imagine. So this is one my son wanted us to print. Can anybody tell what it is?
It's the Superstar.
Yes,
Yeah,
it's like
it's one of the trophies
trophy version
from either Mario Kart or Mario Party. I'm not sure which.
Looks like Mario Kart.
Yeah,
Super cool.
so
That's
yeah,
awesome.
we're going over to visit a friend of his in like a few days. He's like, yeah, we need a trophy for whoever wins Mario Kart.
That's cool. You
Awesome.
gotta make a base, or is it like, is that the entire thing, or is there gonna be more?
That's
to
the
it?
entire thing.
Okay.
But what we want to do, and I'm not crafty enough to do this, but maybe my son and my wife, is to paint it.
Sure.
Because as we know, most 3D printers only print in one color.
Right.
So if you want them to be colorful, you've got to paint them.
It's on you.
Right.
Yeah. And I don't know if I showed this one last week, but we printed
nice.
another one of these
The
creeper
creeper block.
Nintendo holders. So it like inside it holds Nintendo
That's cool.
cards to give to his friend. So
I'm gonna have to pick your brain, Avram, because I want to do that.
yeah, it's I mean it's
good news.
It's a fun.
We did an episode on it last week for the Piltch Point.
Yeah. We did. So that's my follow-up to anyone who was watching then and watching now, is that I'm continuing to print on it. But yeah, that's been a chunk of my week. And then, as we'll talk about later, Windows 11, because Blue Shell.
Yeah, I was gonna say I also have a Nintendo trophy.
Sure does.
Cool. Yeah, that's and then just because Windows 11 stuff continues to be big in the news and big traffic getter for us at Tom's Hardware, I'm been doing a lot of registry tweaks and hacking and stuff like that to Windows 11. So that's been my week.
Well, it's a good week. Alante, welcome back. It's been a couple years, other than the pre-show last week, for those who may have caught it live. It's been a couple years since you've been on the show.
A couple of more gray hairs than last time. Full beard, too. It looks good. Yeah, it's been quite some time, and I think one of the topics that we're talking about this week really it got me excited, and I'm back down in the area now, so we were like, why not? Let's make this happen.
Yeah, hopefully we'll see more of you
Yeah,
on the show.
Let's see if we threw this on the wall and it'll stick.
We definitely took the time to create a 3-panel graphic, and we're going to use it.
He was slaving over a hot computer to get this to work, guys. So hope you're watching. Hope you're watching. Mean that quite literally.
Pretty big adjustments to the studio setup to pull this off, but it's good to have you back. The topic he's talking about, we'll be talking about in Nifty Gifties, Extra Life, which is of course the new handheld console from Valve, which is a follow-up to a topic that Avram and I talked about several weeks ago when there were rumors about what they were doing, and it turns out we were totally wrong. So that'll be a fun topic later on. But for now, let's get down to some news. No. This week's Nifty Gifties and F5 Live is proudly powered by the Microsoft Store. Whether you're looking for a new laptop, a tablet, desperately looking for an Xbox, new games, or a whole lot more, you can get them all at the Microsoft Store. And remember that current students, faculty, parents, and active military can save up to 10% on almost anything. And to browse the products, and of course to learn about those discounts, you can do that by going to f5live.tv/Microsoft. So, it's been a couple of years since there was a big issue in this area, but I think everybody remembers in 2018 the Galaxy Note 7 debacle that was causing phones to, explode. And we talked at that time about whether or not, and we've actually got a great article on it, about whether or not Samsung had changed its philosophy from building the best products possible to a philosophy of meeting deadlines, because there were other issues that all kind of popped up at the same time, and then it went away. But over the last couple of weeks, we've been seeing a lot of reports, particularly on online forums like Reddit, talking about the Galaxy S20 series of phones having screen issues. There was a video published on YouTube back in May that showed an all-white screen with weird green blotches. He said that the problem had started a couple of months earlier with the screen flickering, having some scan lines, and then over time it turned into just this white and green weird, like, colored snow nonsense. The screen seems to respond to touch, but does not show anything of value. Since then, Reddit has been flooded with people reporting the exact same behavior. Now, obviously, total speculation on what's happening here, but if you've worked in the repair space at all, laptops do something similar when the ribbon cable, which is often run through the hinge, gets damaged in one way or another. Usually from crimping, which obviously is not likely inside of a non-flip phone, which these are not, but it could be heat that could be damaging it, which could also explain this gradual process from working to scan lines to flickers to all white. I had an early monitor and a laptop both do the same thing based on heat, so it wouldn't be out of the question, but it's definitely not great, right?
This sounds
Is it
horrible.
possible that the phones are just expressing their artistic side, doing a little Jackson Pollock for you?
You know, it is a little Jackson Pollocky, and they have different people do seem to have had their phones choose different colors to go to, though green does seem to be the most common.
This sounds pretty awful.
Yeah.
I must say. I mean, are there any hearings of people's phones returning somewhat back to normal?
Nope.
Ooh.
As of now, nobody's phone has come back. The only solution has been screen replacements, which of course are super expensive,
Yep.
which does suggest that it is a hardware problem. I have not heard anybody discuss what maybe a repair person might have said about the problem, and it's possible that they wouldn't have said, but I don't know.
It does sound
Covered
pretty...
under warranty.
See, we are just barely outside of 1 year
Ooh.
on most of these devices. So that is making it worse. That it's happening just outside of the 12-month mark.
I mean, only if you got the S20 when it first came out, right?
Right.
I mean, if you got it more recently, then you'd still be within
Right.
a year.
The people that are reporting the issue are people who seem to have had it early on, which doesn't necessarily mean that the other ones won't do it eventually. Because if it is some sort of a heat-based time thing, they've got the same, time bomb ticking inside their phone. It just might be ticking, they just started earlier. But again, we don't know what the problem is.
Is it only Ultra 5G or all the models?
So there are people who have reported it with all the models, but the high-end ones seem to be doing it more. And apparently, I don't have a whole lot of confirmation on this because Samsung doesn't usually talk about this stuff, but apparently the high-end models have a different heat dissipation system in this model than they did previously, which could also kind of lend some credence to the idea that it might be heat-based, because they changed it and apparently are changing it back in the next model. So maybe they discovered a problem with that heat, dispersion system, but they're not responding to any reports on this as of right now.
That's very
probably for the
frustrating.
best.
Yeah.
Honestly, it sucks, but that's probably for the best that they hold off for now. Maybe do a little research. It does sound, just from hearing what all is happening, it does sound like that though. Like it's a heat problem that's affecting the ribbon cable, which maybe the ribbon cable is slowly either slipping out or just being damaged.
Copper disconnecting or getting thinner
Yeah.
could explain behavior. None of it's great.
No.
But we have on the website a link to the Reddit forum about what's happening. Although, interestingly, that server appears to be down right now, which is interesting. It
Sniped.
wasn't earlier. A third try worked.
Okay.
But anyway, you can see people talking about it on multiple devices, but mostly on the higher end phones. Which obviously, that's when it comes to the issues, right? It was the Note 7 that was the problem. It was the high end phone of the time that was the problem. Here we're seeing this more on the two upper end models, again affecting the most expensive devices. It's an unfortunate trend.
I was about to say, there seems to be some
So
kind of
buy the
weird link.
cheapest.
It's definitely not a great sales pitch for them, I would say.
So buy the cheapest. I mean, last year my wife's phone went, and we got her a Galaxy S20, the low end model of Galaxy S20, and this hasn't happened yet. And it's been I think it's been about a year since she got it. So this concerns me. I hope it doesn't happen, because I really don't want to buy another. Even the low end model was like $800.
Yeah.
So it's not cheap.
Well, if this is a systemic problem like the Note 7 was, it's important to note that Samsung didn't respond to inquiries right away while they researched what was happening, and then they came out and did a series of things, none of which worked. In the end, they ended up recalling all the phones, replacing all the phones with something else, and then anybody who refused to send it in, they were remotely disabled, which was fascinating. That was a whole different topic for us to talk about. But this doesn't seem to be a hazard, so the chances of remote disconnection are unlikely. But in this case, if it is a systemic problem, Samsung does have a track record of trying to fix problems such as the Note 7. So
let's hope this doesn't cascade into the phone's melting in your pocket, or maybe it won't explode this time.
like the PSPs, right?
Oh, yeah.
There was the issue with one batch of PSPs where like the battery compartment was melting or something.
Sure was.
Burned some kid in class. He wasn't supposed to have it in class. That's a whole different issue. But that we've literally seen something like that happen before too. So, Yeah. But yeah, let's hope that what we'll see is, if there's a systemic problem, that Samsung will take care of it, and if there's not, that this is an isolated situation, and despite people claiming to have never dropped them or gotten them wet, maybe there is some sort of a thing that they're doing kind of universally that's causing the problem. We'll see. Obviously, we were going to keep on top of this one because, I didn't even know that this was going to personally affect Avram. So it affects a lot of people. A lot of people have these phones. So we'll definitely keep on top of it.
Yep.
This week's Piltch Point with Avram Piltch is proudly powered by PureVPN. The best way to protect your privacy online is with PureVPN. You can hide your online activities, say goodbye to regional restrictions, and improve your streaming quality. Plus, it's available for almost all of your devices. And right now, you can get a special price by going to piltchpoint.live/PureVPN. All right, Avram. So you have got more information on Windows 11 for us, right?
Yes. So Windows 11 has become a big, it's going to be big because, it's the next version of Windows. And a lot of people have it now as an insider. And I have to admit, it has been taking up a lot of my time the last few weeks, because not only do we want to see how it works, we want to see how to change the way it looks. So let me share with you something we didn't get to do when we discussed Windows 11 before it actually became available, which is to show you what it looks like. So I'm sharing my screen here, and you can see this is the default Windows 11 desktop. And the first thing you'll notice if you haven't looked at Windows 11 before is that everything is centered by default. The Start menu. This is the widgets menu. You're going to see. I hid the task view 1 second. But anyway, this is what your Start menu looks like. It shows things that you have recently used, and should actually sync this across devices if you have Windows running on another device. Although I have found it does not necessarily doing that. But anyway. It shows the apps that are pinned. Then if you want to see all of them, you've got to click all apps and go down this list. The search function is a little bit buried here, in that when you click it, you get this extra search menu. And that's different from Windows 10, where you have a search bar in the taskbar that you can start typing into. But the search ends up working basically the same. So if you're looking for an app, or you're looking for for a document or something like that, you just search for it, and it'll also have web results. Another thing that's new here, if we go and actually open a window, is the snap capability. So if you hover over, you'll actually see this menu of all the ways that you could possibly snap this window. So let's say I want to snap it like this. And then if I had, let's say, another window, this is my virtual machine, so I don't have a lot of great stuff on it right now. But let's say I'm snapping and I want to go like this. Well, now it's going to align it like so, right? It gives me all the snap options to move these things around. Now, I'm going to enable the task view, which I had kind of hidden for other reasons, but shouldn't be hidden. And when you go into the task view here, you have multiple desktops, right? And if you have, and you can easily switch back and forth, and each desktop can actually have its own wallpaper. So if I really want this to say be my like work from home desktop, and I want to switch back and forth, you can see that. Oh, did I only change? Did it change on everything? In this case, it changes
does
everything.
seem that
but
way.
It's not supposed to do that. There's a way of customizing. Is it that I have to? Oh, okay. Well, you have to do it in here. You have to right click and select choose background just for that. Just for that one, I think we'll do it. And that will allow you to do it. But so another thing you have here is the widgets, window widgets. And this is really like the MSN homepage that you get when you open Edge browser by default. You get all these news headlines, which are supposed to be on topics that you care about, and you can, if not, you can go and change. You can go in here and you can customize what you want here, like your calendar. They recently, just this week, added this movie one, this entertainment one, and when you click it, it lets you buy that movie. I don't see how that's good for Microsoft, but I don't see how that's great for you. As we said, there's going to be a new Microsoft Store, but they really haven't refined it yet, and it's going to actually have Android apps in it that you can install. But let's take a step back here. What do you guys think, Alante? What do you think of the new Windows 11 interface? Does it look that much different to you than Windows 10?
You know, honestly, I do see the differences and changes. I really like Windows 10, right? But they seem to have really, I don't know. It's like they really kind of took the time to focus on like what do people want to see when they hit these buttons, or what is it that people are doing when they have multiple windows open, or multiple when they're multitasking, essentially. And the snapping in Windows 10 was really nice, but it was a little chunky. You know,
one thing that's really cool in the snapping I should show you is that it remembers. So like, let's say I got an email or something and I had to open a new program. I don't have a great lot of new programs. So let's say I did this. Like, hey, okay, I'm done with whatever this program is. Get me back to where I was. You can go back to either of these, and you can see it says group, and you click that. It takes you back to the setup that you had, so you can get back to your workflow if something interrupted it, which I think is pretty cool. Also, if you are docking and undocking a laptop, and you pull, and let's say you're docked to a multi-monitor setup, you pull your laptop out of the dock, it's going to minimize the windows that were on the secondary screens rather than trying to transfer them over to the main screen. And then when you plug in again to the dock, if you haven't moved those windows, they'll pop up on the secondary monitors again. So that's pretty cool. But what do you think of the start menu specifically?
Yeah, I was curious about your take on the start menu.
I think the start menu looks great. Personally, like I like how it looks. I don't like where it sits. I know.
So let me show you a couple of hacks.
Okay.
First of all, built into Windows 11. So this isn't even really a hack; it's just a setting change. If you do taskbar settings, you got to click under taskbar behaviors, and there's alignment, and you can align it left. So that takes you back to a more standard position.
That's
of left.
That's important.
And one of the things that people may not have noticed in that was something that Microsoft in the past has not been great about, and that's been transitions, particularly from like setting state to setting state. when you did that, everything slid. It didn't just disappear in one place and appear in another. There was this nice sliding animation that happened as they moved back to the left. It's those types of things that I think they've really focused on this time. Little details. Little things. We've seen that. Thankfully, the volume and media control panel is changing finally. I don't know that it's in place yet, but we know that it's coming. Yeah. Okay. There you go. That's.
I mean, I don't see it as being really being that much different than the Windows 10 one. I mean,
no, but
it's just cosmetic.
The thing that when you're like playing a track and you change the volume and it pops up in the top left corner, it's all still very Windows 80. Even now, it didn't even match the Windows 10 aesthetic. They didn't update that. Those were the little things about Windows 10 that seemed to be problematic because they were hurriedly trying to get away from Windows 8 and a lot of stuff stayed behind. But in this case, it does seem like, they're looking at those little details. There's no square box in the top left corner when you adjust the volume. When you're changing desktops, when you clicked on that button, the desktop tabs were at the bottom, not the top. So you didn't have to click at the bottom to start it and then click at the top to change them. Those types of little things.
That is a big improvement. But let me show you something. I personally don't like the start menu. And why I don't like it is it's bigger. It's bigger and seemingly has, don't know if it has fewer icons, but it's a lot bigger. So I measured it, and it's about 100 pixels, at least on this 1080p resolution desktop here, at 100 pixels taller than the Windows 10 start menu. And it makes you click more, right? Because instead of scrolling, you have to click here to get all apps. Which, by the way, there's a lot of wasted space here. And I hate the search function because the only way to get, you could just hit Window S and you'll get your menu. So I guess in that respect, it's not that many more clicks or any more clicks, but you can't get the box down here. You have to click this. If you click into something that looks like a box, it just takes you there. So the start menu has a search box on it. Oh wow, I don't have to leave this. Click it, it just launches the other one. It's a fake box.
And that doesn't even match the thing I was just talking about with like the animations and stuff. That was a hard, jarring transition.
Yeah.
From the start menu to the search.
They're hoping you don't notice that you actually are in a different menu than you thought you were in. So
it's a different size and it moved to the right.
Yes.
I will say this, though.
They're hoping that you're too busy typing. Maybe you're a hunt and peck typist who's looking down at your keyboard. So I installed this program called OpenShell. There's a couple of different programs. And what it does is it gives you a more classic start menu.
Interesting.
Now,
that's the first time that I've seen UAC dialogue.
Yeah, I mean, for just in your life or me?
No, Windows 11. That was the first Windows 11 UAC I've seen.
Yeah, it's a long story, but I used to always turn it off, and then I got a lot of criticism from people for writing to say you should turn it off. So I have now decided that I will always leave it on. Anyway, so right now you'll see it's not doing anything, right? Because you have to actually go into the OpenShell settings. Here you can choose your style of, but they're all Windows 7. There's some other programs out there. There's one called Start 10, and there's one called Start Is Back ++ that cost money and do the same thing, and maybe look a little more polished. All of them are sort of Windows 7 style, but still a lot more compact. If you want to just replace the start button, they don't have an easy way for you to replace it with one that looks like Windows 10 or Windows 11. So you can try and upload your custom icon, but then you end up with this thing that looks like a celebration of Shell gasoline. So in the menu that you can kind of configure. But what what if you want this to look a bit more like Windows 10? Well, there's a registry hack you can do. And I have detailed all of this in an article that I have on Tom's Hardware right now called How to Make Windows 11 Look and Feel Like Windows 10. So there is this registry key, local machine software, Microsoft Windows current version shell update packages. I'm sure you'll remember that. Undocking disabled is the name of the value for some reason. Change it to 1. Now you got to restart, which will only take a second, and you're going to see what happens, which is that I'm going to get a Windows. You'll see. You can see I'm running this in VMware Workstation, so it's not my actual computer. But I do have Windows 11 running on my actual laptop. So if I go and I open this up, take a second for it to boot, you're going to see that I have a completely different looking taskbar that Microsoft probably would not want me to have, but they left this little hack in there. And it's these sorts of things that I kind of live for, because it's finding the stuff you're not supposed to be able to do, or it's a secret that is kind of always a thrill for me. Although I can't say I found it, more like I saw people doing it. I was following for them. So here you have a Windows. You have the Windows 10 style taskbar, and now if I want this to look like Windows 10, I can. If I go to the settings, not replace the start button, because it puts this here anyway, and now I have my Windows 10 start icon. More importantly, you'll see here it says lock the taskbar. I'll unlock it. I can drag it around. You cannot do that.
Yeah.
On Windows 11 natively does not allow you to move the taskbar. So that's a trick. Now, the something to know about this is that this doesn't work. This task view button doesn't work properly, and you should hide it, because when you try to do it, it actually causes the bar to crash a little bit, and the search button does nothing. However, if you want to search, there's a search right here in your start, where I think it belongs. So it's kind of a neat way, and you can see that it eats up a lot less screen real estate. I think it's like 200 or 300 pixels less vertical, and I just want a more humble start menu that gets me to what I need to do. Now, you'll also notice there's a little, where'd my clock go? When you make this change, your clock disappears, but you can get it back permanently by going to this control panel here, and then you turn your clock on and your volume on and your network thing on, your network stuff on, and now we're back in business, right? So that's my big make Windows 11 look like 10 trick. It also brings back a couple other things, which is the File Explorer now has ribbons in it. You may have noticed that the Windows 11 version of this was really stripped down and didn't show you most of your options. It also shows you the full context menu when you right-click on things, whereas in Windows 11, by default, you get a limit of your top 7 right-click options, and then you have to click Show More Options to see them all. So what do you guys think? Do you like the hack better or the original?
It's an interesting question. Yeah. Obviously, Windows 10 and this interface is the one that we're currently familiar with. It's the one that, there's a half a dozen computers in the studio running Win 10 that all look that way. Mm-hmm. So, change is always hard, but there are definitely problems with the Windows 11 overall UI that I'm struggling with. And the weird amount of unused space is certainly one of them. Yeah. That I'm struggling with hard. So this is definitely a nice change. Oh, hey, Avram's back.
I just feel like
we cut out for a second.
Oh, we did. Oh. I just feel like we, they're. I feel like Windows is sort of like Star Trek original series Star Trek movies, right? It's like every other one is good. So now we're on the odd number. Now we're on the odd number Windows 11, and we got a problem because this is the same thing that happened. I think this is. I mean, think about this. If you go back, people liked Windows 95. At least I liked it. Uh, I think they kind of like 98, so maybe that's all right. Windows Me, horrible. Windows XP, beloved. Windows Vista, hated. Windows 7, because it was a reversal of Vista, loved. Windows 8, wait a second, we're just going to get rid of the Windows and make it Microsoft Window and do everything full screen. Hated. Windows 10 brings back all the things that you liked about Windows 7. Loved. Windows 11, trying to compromise, but what it's doing is something that Windows 8 did, which is lowering the information density. We want to spread things out, more room between icons, a bigger start menu. At least it doesn't take up the whole screen like Windows 8. And we're going to make you click more times because I think there's a design philosophy here that we're trying to design for non-power users. We're trying to make it easier for them by putting less information on the screen at once and using more white space. I don't like that. Let me pack my stuff in there. Thank you very much.
All of your useful stuff. Yeah.
Yes. Let me pack all my useful stuff in there at once. I don't need the navigation, like the start menu, to be the star of the show. My work should be the star of the show. The programs that I'm using, not Microsoft's interface. So I want to see more information without clicking. I want to have fewer clicks to get to what I'm doing, and I want to be transported away from what I'm working on less. So this is why Windows 8, I think, people hated it. When you think about it, the amount of clicks that you had to do to get to something wasn't really any different, right? If you hit the start button in Windows 8, you got a full screen start menu and you had to click a tile. It is no more clicks than the start menu on other Windows is, where you click to open the start menu and then you clicked again on your icon. Still 2 clicks. But the fact that the start menu covered the entire screen over and sort of took you away from what you were doing was annoying. And I feel like this is sort of like that. I mean, at least doesn't cover the whole screen, but it's trying too hard to have you focus on the UI and less on just trying to get you to where you're going.
Yeah, I can see that.
Same.
And personally, I'm good with full context. In fact, this computer over here has Windows 10 set in full screen start mode. But yeah, I totally understand the idea. The visual switch being jarring, because it can be, for sure. And they've taken that away, but they haven't taken away the look at me.
I definitely am with you, Avram, on the idea that every other Windows is almost like a trial run. Right?
Yeah.
It's like they're trying all of these new things,
and the next one they fix them.
And the next one they fix them. They
Yep.
Everybody's happy. So
yeah.
I kind of wonder. I feel like we're at the point with Windows 11. They should give us just a lot of options to make it look and function how we want it to, but in a simple way. And I know that's difficult. I'm just saying this as a person who doesn't do any of that. But like,
yeah, I don't think it is difficult. I think that because you can see third-party utilities that do it. So if Microsoft wanted to, they could give you more options. I think that it's somewhat about branding, right? Like, we don't want people to make it look too much like Windows 10, because then they won't know that they won't see the difference.
right.
So they're trying to make sure that you see that this is their new vision.
Allow us to make like a hybrid then. There are obviously some things that we like about Windows 11. There's some things we really love about it. It's just some of these decisions that they're making are questionable. So let us take it a step back.
Yep.
And it's
that's why people like Linux, right?
Right. It's a little bit of that iOS versus Android conversation that we've had many times over the last decade, right, Avram? Where Android, you could do just about anything and we're going to take out the app stores and all that stuff. We're going to talk on the operating system. With Android, you can do almost anything you want. Alante and I have the same phone, and they don't look the same.
Not at all.
Right.
But if we both had an iPhone, whoop, they look the same.
Gotta ask Daddy Apple to do everything.
Exactly. And this feels a little bit like they're adding some of that restriction. Not being able to move the taskbar, weird. I don't understand why people do, and I don't care.
Same.
That's the thing. It's not my place to try and understand it.
Right, exactly. Like I like it at the bottom, but why wouldn't you let people put it at the top? There's another hack, there's another hack, by the way, which I encourage folks to go to tomshardware.com to see these, that just lets you move the taskbar to the top. So if you like the Windows 11 taskbar and you don't want to get into hacking it to have the Windows 10 taskbar, which admittedly is a little bit of a risky move because I'm sure they'll break it in a future update. There's another registry hack that puts the start menu, the taskbar on the top of the screen, but it's not really meant to be used. So some things, like I think when you're changing the volume, suddenly appear in the lower right anyway, because it's not really supported. But I do appreciate them. I do appreciate them making these things difficult because we can get a lot of people to read articles because of it. So I always appreciate bugs or limitations like this. However, every week they seem to be issuing a new window build, and then I have to go back and test all the hacks to make sure they still work, because rather than adding more hacks, they seem to be taking them away.
Yeah, there was a whole list of things that disappeared in a build that came out a couple of days ago that I heard about.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, there was actually an option in the first preview to get the Windows 10 start menu, the real Windows 10 start menu, which has tiles and everything, back just with a single registry entry, and they killed it in the second preview build. So,
gotcha.
Sad to say. Now, all I'm going to say is, we're covering this daily. We have some major articles on this on tomshardware.com, so please check us out, because this is my life. My life lately is tracking these things, hanging out on sites like WinArrow and 11 Forum, where there are a lot of people exchanging this type of information, because it's really hard to figure out when there's a new registry hack. I've also spent many hours just trying things to see if I can find one. So anyway,
that doesn't sound terrifying at all.
Yeah.
But come check it out. And you may find something that you can change in Windows 11 that you didn't like, or just read our article on how to install it, or how to install it in a Windows virtual machine so you can play with it like I'm playing with it now, without risking any of your real apps and data.
And on that topic, I am working on doing a thing about converting a non-supported computer into a supported computer with a TPM chip. As soon as it arrives, I'll let you know how all of that goes, because I have a computer in the office that's one generation out.
I should mention that when I use the ISO file, I'm curious for you to try this, because I've mainly done it in a virtual machine. But when I installed it from the ISO file, that did a clean install, I installed on machines that had none of the requirements. And it didn't give me any error. So I installed it on a virtual machine that had 2 gigabytes of RAM, no TPM and no secure boot, and it didn't give me a single error. So rather than doing the upgrade install, I suggest that you see my article on how to do a clean Windows 11 install, which explains how to download the ISO file, and then you can and try that, because you may not need the TPM chip.
Interesting.
Good to know.
At least for now. I mean, eventually for real, you probably will, but
sure.
At least for now, I think that works.
Very cool. Well, I'm going to check that out personally and see if I can make that work. And then once that TPM chip shows up, which who knows when that'll happen, I'll do a follow-up on that experience as well. As always, Avram, thank you, because for me, the only systems that I have that aren't mission critical that I'm willing to do this on are not supported. So I have been relying on you, my friend, and I know others are as well. So thank you for that, and I cannot wait to see what we talk about next time. This week's Extra Life on F5 Live is proudly powered by Loot Crate. Whether you're a gamer, anime fan, or pop culture aficionado, Loot Crate has got a crate for you. They curate a bundle of collectibles, apparel, figures, and more that you can't find anywhere else. You get it delivered to your door. It's like getting an awesome birthday present from a friend every month. And you can learn more right now about the crates that are available by going to f5live.tv/lootcrate. So we teased this at the top of the show. This week, we got some news about what Valve's plans were in the console world. A couple of weeks ago, the CEO, Gabe Newell, had made comments during a panel that they had plans in the console realm, and that was the extent of what he said, other than we would learn more later. It is now later, and we know that those plans are not bringing the store to another platform, working with Microsoft on the Xbox, which was a pretty strong rumor that was out there, and then it was the fuel was added to that fire when Microsoft said that they were hoping to bring the Steam store to the Microsoft store on Windows 11. No, that's not it. Instead of teaming up with somebody, they are going against Nintendo. They announced a new console, the Steam Deck, which is not to be confused with the Stream Deck, which is currently in my hand right now from Elgato. It is definitely a horrible name because it's going to be confusing, and Elgato will certainly make sure they know. But for now, the Steam Deck is essentially a Nintendo Switch that had a baby with the ill-fated Steam machines and birthed a portable gaming PC. Now, we've seen portable gaming PCs before. At CES 2020, we were invited to see the Alienware something prototype. Can't think of the name now.
Yeah, I can't think of it either.
That was interesting. If you spend any time on the Chinese knockoff sites like Wish or Alibaba, you'll see that there's tons of them on there, but none of them are quite this. What Steam has done is they've taken some decent-ish hardware, put their Steam OS, which was made originally for the Steam machines that never hit the market, and made a portable gaming PC. Conceptually, it seems real sound. I know we got excited about it as soon as the announcement happened. Alante already has a pre-order in for one. But
when did they say it's shipping?
See, that's one of the things.
Good question. So they were slated to ship December. What was it? The end of December of this year.
Yeah, December 2021 is all they said.
However, as pre-orders stacked and as the website choked, that it got pushed back to as far as Q4 of 2022 right now.
Oh, so then it's gotten even further.
Q3.
Okay,
sorry.
As of last night, it was Q3 2022.
Yeah.
So it's pretty crazy.
But people who already have pre-orders in seem to have other dates based on when they put their pre-order in. So his pre-order lists Q1 of 2022, which could be as early as just a couple of weeks after launch, if it's the beginning of January, but it could also be the end of March to be Q1. So, but I mean, they're taking pre-orders right now that may not ship for a full year after the initial launch. So that's intense.
Kind of bananas.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, won't the hardware be outdated?
Ah, interesting you say that. So let's talk about said hardware, shall we? It's actually one of our concerns. So the system says that it has a 1.6 teraflop GPU, which is right between the capabilities of the Xbox One S and the original PlayStation 4. The Xbox One X had a 5.8 teraflop GPU, and the PlayStation 4 Pro had a 4.0. And it's important to note that other than the Steam Deck, all of those devices have been discontinued in favor of more powerful hardware.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know.
It really...
By the way, did you note that this is an AMD, a custom AMD Zen 2 APU?
Yes.
Yep.
So that's
Zen 2, so it'll run Windows 11.
Yes, it'll run Windows 11 it's going to come with Steam OS though. So,
correct.
But I'm sure one of the first tutorials people will do, and I would be excited to do this one, will be how to install Windows 11 on it. Right?
They say themselves that you are welcome to install Windows and give yourself more access to whatever you need from Windows.
I mean, 16 gigabytes of RAM is good.
Yeah.
And if you get at least the 256 gig model, then you get you get with NVMe SSD. So that would be good. The entry model uses 64 gigabytes of eMMC memory.
Mm-hmm.
So not clear whether the entry model will be upgradable, but the 256 and 512 apparently we reported on this on Tom's Hardware this weekend, are socketed. So if you can open it,
interesting,
you should be able to replace the SSD. Although apparently it is slightly shorter. It's like an 8830 size instead of most are 80 millimeters, but this is the 30 millimeter, which you can buy, but they're just less common.
Okay.
So
it's just important to know.
So you could theoretically upgrade. We won't say for sure you can do it until we get one and
until we have one in our hands.
See how easy it is to take apart, but it seems like you might be able to upgrade it. That makes it not a terrible regular PC.
Yeah, right. And when you take into consideration that SteamOS does have a full desktop experience, it looks a lot like Windows 10, except the Steam OS icon, which looks like the Discovery television station logo, replaces the Windows logo on the start button. But other than that, it looks very similar to Windows 10. Even the date and time are stacked on top of each other in the same way. So, I mean, it's got a full desktop experience. It is designed specifically to be able to be dockable, like the Switch. You could dock it to a television or to a monitor with a keyboard and mouse. In their press images, there are 2 fighting sticks connected to it at once, which is a little silly because the fighting sticks are about 8 times larger than the screen on the device, but that's fine.
It's the idea that counts.
Yeah, exactly. It does mean that 2 devices are connected to it at once, which means that either there's multiple ports, or since it's got USB-C, you could put a hub on it. However they're accomplishing it, it means that you could keyboard and mouse, you could hook it to a monitor, you could use it as a computer, you could use it as a gaming computer, you can disconnect it and take it with you, and continue to use it as a computer, as a gaming computer, which is a benefit to it that the Switch doesn't have. It does, obviously, at its $659 upper price point, definitely makes the price of the Switch, which is less than half of that, a bit attractive. But they're definitely aimed at different people.
It's a buff Switch, right?
Yeah.
I think that is the angle that they're going for. Is not everybody loves the Switch, but a lot of people yeah, exactly. It's hard not to love the Switch, but it does have an obvious lack of power, which
is why we were hoping for the Switch Pro. It's not what we got, but it's okay.
I mean, we got a good dock. But that's cool.
I think you might be muted there, bud.
Yeah, I think you are muted.
I was gonna say you get your Luigi, that's what that's what people want from their. That's what people want from their Nintendo Switch. They want cute Nintendo IP, right?
True. That's what makes the Switch and its inherent lack of power acceptable and addressable is the fact that Nintendo knows that their bread is buttered with their existing successful IP,
their own jam.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
This is true.
Exactly. Whereas so this is a different market.
Yeah. And with Valve, sure, their bread definitely can be buttered with their own jam, right? They do have Portal and Half-Life and Left 4 Dead and things like that. They do have their own in-house IP, but it's not the vastness that is Nintendo's. They're definitely going to have to rely on the compatibility of other games, which of course was one of the big concerns that we addressed when the Steam machines were first announced, was that only Linux compatible games were going to work, which was 8.5% of the catalog at the time, which wasn't going to work. I said right then and there, this is going to cause problems. And in the time since the disaster that was the Steam machines, they have worked on, I think it's called the Steam Bridge, which allows a majority of Windows designed games to run on Linux through something. I don't know or care about the technology. What I know is that the lag isn't terrible. It exists, but it's not terrible. It's certainly not Windows 10 running on the Samsung ARM laptop that I am pretty sure if Avram had the opportunity would have smashed over a desk.
I hate Windows on ARM. I mean, I think the concept is fine, but it's been terrible.
I can hear the passion.
Oh yeah. When he talked about it, when he had that first one, you could just see the rage in his eyes. and that's not here. That's not what we're looking at here. We're looking at a different emulation technology that seems to work better, maybe more similar to how the Microsoft Bridge, which is almost certainly what's powering Android apps on Windows 11, works. Because they built the Microsoft Bridge a couple of years ago for Windows 8. It probably is something more like that, which is great. It adds a little bit of lag, but not a lot. And it's upping that 8.5% significantly. In fact, Valve says almost all the games in the catalog will work. A vast majority, I think, was the exact quote. And based on what they've said about the bridge in the past, I think they said that about 3% of games don't run through the bridge. So that's 97 instead of 8.5.
Yeah.
That's a much better experience.
Yeah.
You brought up the topic of other places where lag might be introduced into the system, though.
Yeah. So, a lot of anybody that's watching that knows me. They know I love fighting games. And there are a lot of people out there who like first-person shooter games as well. And there's a huge importance in both of those genres in particular when it comes to input lag. Even if it's 1 frame, 2 frame, 3 frames, all of that is extremely important in both of those genres. So when you introduce new points of failure, or these new or more connections, that you have all of these points, these choke points that can introduce lag. So we're going from I'm going to be playing the Steam Deck. I'm going to be playing the Steam Deck.
That didn't take long.
I tried so hard. I'm going to be playing the Steam Deck 100% docked. That's how I play my Switch as well. But Steam Deck on dock, HDMI out to your TV/monitor or whatever. I wonder with this setup how much lag is going to be introduced, or do they have some kind of system in place to mitigate that?
It's definitely a concern.
Yeah.
Because the video runs over USB-C.
USB-C, yeah.
Which means that there's some sort of conversion in there from USB-C to HDMI.
Well, is
to
it
DVI.
alternate? Are you sure it's not alternate mode?
Say that differently. I don't know what that means.
Alternative mode in USB-C?
Which is the thing where HDMI runs natively over USB-C?
Yes.
It almost certainly
So-
is. But from what I understand from people in the fighting game community in particular, even that can add a couple of frames, either in the cabling or
That's fascinating.
something.
Yeah.
I've never heard that.
Yeah, I've done very little research on it. I'm not gonna lie. It's not my bag. It's more Alante's over there.
I'll say this: some people that I've talked to about this during this short stint about those concerns, they kind of agree that it's more likely not going to be a concern.
But it could be.
It's just something out there that I definitely want to test when it comes out. I want to make sure that
people who know their stuff, such as you, will probably see the difference. I might see the difference. I would probably not. But we recently, interesting thing I recently learned, and maybe you guys knew this already, but maybe some of our viewers didn't, that if you're doing emulation and you're using either a retro console or you're using actually an original console, old console, and you want to avoid lag, you need a CRT television. Then apparently the conversion to get it onto an HDMI device, HDMI screen, you lose a little bit. And I didn't know that. We had recently hired
up to 8 frames, I think I read. Depending on the device, you can
someone
have
who
8
does
frames or
retro
something.
gaming, and she made a big point about how she had to go out and get a CRT television to have the best experience, and I was really surprised to hear that.
I watch a lot of speedrunners who they can't use emulation in a lot of spaces. They have to use the actual original hardware. And I also watch a lot of people play old fighting games and stuff, and it's the same, exactly the same. People who play Smash Brothers Melee tournaments and stuff like that, they were actually the reason why CRTs were selling like crazy and becoming so expensive for a while, is because tournament organizers and stuff were gobbling up CRTs as much as they could by the hundreds, for these tournaments so that people can play them optimally. Yeah, that is absolutely a thing.
Fascinating.
I'm
And
just
that's
surprised no one has found a workaround.
right? it's one of those things that I would never have considered. It's because those couple of frames, if you're playing Mario, unless you're doing speed running, are far less important than if you're playing Street Fighter, where every frame's important, something like that. So I wouldn't have thought about it, but yeah, it's definitely a topic that I've seen out there.
And here's another bit about all of that fighting game jargon and all that is a lot of tournament organizers have been kind of pressured to go to PC for tournaments, but they would have to again buy these PCs by the hundreds, which is extremely expensive. And then the Steam Deck shows up, and now this is half the price almost of of gaming PCs out there, and so now we're kind of being thrown a new variable. It's like this actually might be an affordable option for tournament organizers to buy by the hundreds to satisfy
move to a new
audiences. Because some games don't run the same, or fighting games I'm speaking of in general don't run the same on console as they do on PC. Some of them have more lag on PC. Some of them have more lag on console.
Sure.
So, this is why I talk about it.
It's fascinating.
No, that makes sense. Don't if you think this is a good deal, don't you think somebody should come out with, or maybe one could easily build a system like this that wasn't portable and didn't have a screen? Like, then it would be a lot cheaper, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. That would be interesting.
Or is that what the Steam box was?
Yeah, those Steam machines were it is what those were. It is what they were. Steam box is what we all thought it was going to be called, and we were wrong. We have articles calling it the Steam box right up until they made the announcement. Because I was looking at all of our old articles on the topic, and we called it Steam box right up until they made the announcement, and Nick was pissed at the name. Like, we've been calling it this for months. Just go with what we've been saying.
Some people were like, why didn't they call it the Steam Boy?
Oh, yeah. Because Nintendo would be harder to fight against than Elgato for a bad name.
This is true. They're already, this is already a direct competitor to the Switch, right?
We don't need to also try and riff on their name.
Yeah.
But one of the other things that we were talking about the last couple of days around here has been controller drift, which has been a huge problem on the Switch. Less so, but not zero on other consoles over the years. But of course, the big difference is that on all of those devices, you have the ability to replace the controller.
Mm-hmm.
On this one, you don't. They are hard part of the body.
Yeah, that's rough. I was just thinking that myself, because we have that problem with my son's Switch. And like, it's $80 to replace those, but at least you can.
I've got the problem too.
Yeah.
Had the problem on two Pro controllers also.
Oof.
Very expensive.
Yeah, so that is a serious problem, and that was something where Nintendo was very wise in how they built their system. Because look, is there such a thing as a controller that lasts forever?
No.
Probably not, because they get beat up and they get dirty and whatever. So you should probably
and there's moving parts.
Plan for something. Yeah.
GameCube controllers come pretty close though. Those things are really hard to destroy.
I have seen people at tournaments chuck them at televisions, and the TV breaks and the controller doesn't. It's impressive.
He's not lying. He's not lying.
It would be nice if they built that in.
Yeah.
The ability to replace the joystick.
Now you will be able to use external
what?
controllers.
Yeah.
Obviously, we saw a USB powered controller in a lot of photos, but they also talk about how it's got Bluetooth built in, so you should be able to use the second gen Xbox One controller all the way up through the current and the PlayStation 4
Yeah, but if you're buying it, you're buying
controllers.
it for
Right.
you're buying it because you like the form factor. So if it stops working, then you're going to be annoyed.
Now
exactly, and that's the thing.
They were asked specifically about drift issues, and they said that they've put a lot of research and thought into preventing that type of thing from happening. But we'll see how well that goes, because I know me, I'm going to go ham on it. So we'll see how long it takes for it to show up, if it does.
Which is, of course, the step above going turkey. Unexpected. Thank you. So obviously, like we said, we have one on pre-order, and so we'll talk about the whole experience of the pre-order to delivery process when that finally does happen. When it happens, it's certainly something based on their delivery timetable. Clearly, they've sold more of these than they expected. So perhaps they'll pull a Nintendo and figure out a way to up production. Because we know the Nintendo Switch did the exact same thing, and they ended up putting together more production lines to be able to make more of them. Maybe we'll see the same thing out of them. Well, there's no telling. We will definitely be documenting that experience, as well as all of the first hands-on experiences here in the studio as Alante deals with all of those things when
Hopefully
he finally
I won't
gets
break
one. Yeah, let's hope not. It's not an inexpensive device for sure. This week's news from the tubes and F5 Live is proudly powered by Malwarebytes. Whether you use a PC, a Mac, or a mobile device, Malwarebytes Premium is the company's strongest protection ever. It fights threats that traditional antivirus software can't stop, and actively blocks threats like worms, rogues, dialers, trojans, and more. You can use your computer and mobile devices with confidence and peace of mind. And to learn more and to get a special price, you can go to f5live.tv/malwarebytes. Now, last week we talked about the executive order that covered ISPs, and in particular trying to bring more variety and choice to consumers, particularly in places like apartments and condos that have their internet connections locked to a particular provider. And one of the solutions that I had mentioned last week was Starlink, which is currently in beta to about 10,000 users and hopes to be fully functional nearly globally by the end of August. But of course, with something like that, there will always be competitors there as well. And Amazon, that has had a project in the pipeline for a little while, signaled their seriousness to bring that project to life by purchasing a cluster of satellites from Facebook, who had released them in 2018 as part of an internet connection test. Facebook has said that they had never intended to be an internet service provider. This was part of a connectivity test for a series of, research and development projects. The idea of putting satellites into space in a small constellation as R&D is strange, as it's very expensive to do, but here we are. They have seemingly gotten out of whatever R&D they were working on, and now Amazon owns them as part of the initial launch of what will be a direct Starlink competitor, which means that since the FCC put regulations in nearly 20 years ago that allows for people in apartments and condos to put satellite dishes on their property, it does give in the future another satellite-powered internet provider, and I'm not considering HughesNet because, oh my god, that's expensive for nothing. Starlink is like appropriate speeds at, a payable price, and this project from Amazon is supposed to be the same thing, but they don't intend to start firing rockets with satellites on them into space until 2023.
Ooh.
So it's not going to be a quick turnaround on this, which isn't unexpected, right? Because anything that's custom satellite based is not an inexpensive or short-term project, except apparently for
You mean
Facebook.
Jeff Bezos can't just drop one out the window later this week?
Right? Maybe a couple, but certainly not an entire, certainly not an entire constellation all at once. But maybe he'll bring 3 or 4 with him and drop them off quietly. Like, hey, look, hi NASA, look over there. Ooh, satellite.
I just got a pocket satellite here. Here you go.
They don't even have a pilot. Just no one to tell him not to do it.
This is true.
Well, there you go.
You right.
Do you think this is the beginning of a new trend, Avram?
I think the problem, so it would be nice if it were, but remember that people who live in condos and apartment buildings are constrained very often not by the difficulty of actually getting a wire laid to them. I mean, that's one problem, and someone in a house in a remote location or a location where you only have an ISP, only one ISP could do that.
Right.
But very often it's kind of a corrupt condo board situation. That was certainly the case when I lived in a condo, that we wanted to get FiOS, but when we said, hey, we want to get FiOS, the condo board said, oh, but we made a deal with with Time Warner Cable, which was the other provider, and we're getting you better prices, which as far as we could tell, they weren't getting us better prices or anything. Right. So I can imagine the same problem being, hey, okay, we're not allowed to get this other wired service, but I suppose you won't mind if I just go put a satellite up on the top of the condo. I mean, that's another problem where you're going to have to deal with your condo association if it's like a condo apartment situation.
If it's within your box, it is federally illegal for them to prevent you from doing it. You can't put it on the roof.
Can you just put it by your window?
Absolutely.
Oh, so you can just put it by your window?
Yep.
Oh, well, then that, I guess they can't stop you. If you had to put it on the roof, then you would.
Yep. If you can put it on your porch, or if you're on the first floor and you can stick it into the ground or whatever, so long as it's within your box, federal law prohibits them from stopping you.
But,
nice.
I mean, let's not forget also that 5G at home is something that that is happening. That is a similar situation that is happening, although it's not happening to there's not a lot of people who can get it right now. I think there's maybe 10, 20 million, 30 million who are eligible to get it. But
I certainly can't. I tried.
But still, it's something that is, as they build out capacity, that might also be a way around wired ISP problems.
And we've talked on this topic in the past. Part of the problem with something like FiOS or cable or something like that, and the reason why rural areas have had such trouble getting decent speeds is because small numbers of people, large expenditure. But when it comes to something like the LTE, of course they're going to put it in, right? Because the cellular carriers have a different incentive for having coverage, because it's a constant use capability with phones and with IoT devices. There's a lot more potential for devices in there, and for making some money back on the expenditure, especially when you take into consideration that the installation could be isolated on a small tower. So that, plus these new satellite options, we're really starting to see some strong competition to hardwire, and that applies to a lot of people, condos and apartments and rural areas. It's one of the reasons why Facebook was originally doing this R&D, and they've changed their philosophy currently. They're working with partners like, I don't know the name, but I don't know how to pronounce the company. EUTELSAT. Eutelstat? I don't know. But they're working with companies like that to try and work on infrastructure situations for rural communities in particular, which is where the satellites came from. And now they're working with partners, which Amazon might be one. So
I like the idea. Yeah, I definitely agree with the potential problems that can come along with it. But I like the idea. I mean, if it's good, sustainable internet connection and it allows you to, kind of get these connections in these places that are normally difficult to get a good connection,
or in places where there's no choice,
and that's a big thing. That just should not be a thing. We should have choices. I mean, even just you telling your story, Avram, they're like, oh, well, we're getting you the best price. It's like, stop. I should be able to get whatever I want. It should be my choice.
Exactly. So this is overall consumer choice is always good. Although I do have to question whether people will feel comfortable having Amazon as their ISP.
That
sure
is a good question. Yeah.
Of course, the question exists for Facebook having been their ISP, right?
Yeah. Both of those are just companies I'm not sure I would love to be my ISP.
Sure.
I feel like there ought to be a little bit of separation there. Yeah. Amazon it's hooks into so many parts of your life already.
Yeah.
But
you're right.
I mean, competition for Starlink, right? Because Starlink is currently going to be the only game in town. Creating competition for them, I think, is a good thing. Putting some pressure from Starlink and Amazon on T-Mobile, AT&T, and Verizon, I think is a good thing. I think having more competition will only push everybody to try and be better. It's what happened with T-Mobile, right? T-Mobile was basically underground there before John Legere took over, and now they are the ones that bought Sprint. When all the talks before John Legere took over were the other way, that Sprint was going to buy T-Mobile. And they scared AT&T and Verizon, and business models changed. So we might see that kind of massive shift here, and I think it would be a good thing. So we'll see what their timeline ends up looking like. Like I said, as of right now, the FCC and NASA seem to have an agreement for 2023 on these satellites, but now they own some stuff. So maybe things will change. They'll want to speed up their process. We will see what happens next.
Yay, competition.
This week's DRM Not Included on F5 Live is proudly powered by Amazon Prime. You get free shipping, but you get a whole lot more. You get free music with Amazon Prime Music, free TV, movies, and documentaries with Amazon Prime Video. You get free games and a free Twitch subscription, which you can use to support the content creator of your choice with Amazon Prime Gaming, and a whole lot more. We have quick links to all these features and more. A free 30-day trial if you are not already a member. The ability to give it as a gift. And all of that and more is available by going to f5live.tv/prime.
I'm a primer. Are you?
We all are. In fact, we talk about stuff to watch on Prime Video together all the time.
Yeah.
Yes, all the time. I was very disappointed though, because I was looking for, this is really meta, but I was looking for some primer paint, and I couldn't find a good deal on primer paint that could be shipped by Prime.
That sounds like a crime. That really sounds like a crime. I got one.
Oh my goodness. Anyway, so after talking about Prime, let's talk about Netflix.
Yeah.
So shortly after Netflix introduced their profiles feature, seemingly now an eon ago, they introduced kids profiles, which were a great idea. They limited the content that's available down to just kid-friendly content. But there have been a couple of issues with the implementation. Getting a good watch list requires jumping through some hoops because of the locked down nature of the kids' profiles. It also requires going to a web browser and anyway, they have a plan. Netflix has a plan. They're actually going to start emailing parents a bi-weekly watch list, which gives a couple of things. One, it allows you to keep an eye on what your kids are watching, maybe when you're not in the room. But more importantly, it can give you a little bit of insight into them, right? They're not always going to be themselves entirely around their parents, or, we've all got different faces for different people. So perhaps maybe your kids are watching a lot of robotics stuff, and they're not quite as obvious about it as Avram's son is. And you're finding out about their interest in robotics.
Be on Netflix, though. That would be on Netflix.
True. That's a lot of YouTube.
It's not. That would be on YouTube. Type of thing.
But
yes, I get your point.
But maybe they're watching, educational content in a particular area, or they're rewatching a certain episode of a show that has a particular topic. You can learn a little bit that way. Plus, maybe get some suggestions on related content that might be good for them to watch. Or you can find, honestly, this isn't Netflix's point, but if you know the kinds of things that they're watching, you can find related content on Prime Video or Hulu or something like that. Plus, they're going to give related non-Netflix content, stuff like coloring sheets that are specifically from properties that they may have been watching that are printable and then colorable. They're really looking for ways to keep parents and kids engaged, and giving kids new ways to engage with content, which I think is a really great idea, just overall.
Yeah. I mean, so I'm looking right now at the kid profile. I have to say that I'm probably not doing the parenting thing right with this, because my son doesn't either we watch things on Netflix, we never use the kid profile. So that's okay. In order to actually take advantage of this, you would need to use the kid profile. What we end up doing is, either if there's something on Netflix we would watch together, then we watch together. It's on my profile. And then there was one show that he watched by himself, which is the Captain Underpants show. And that he just said, I'm going downstairs, I'm going to put on the Captain Underpants show. And I was tired. I was like, fine, whatever, put on your Captain Underpants show. And I'm sure he went through my profile to do it. But
okay.
But if you look at what they have on the kid profile, I mean, it's all so innocuous, which is, I guess, what you want for kids. But, I guess I wouldn't call any of this educational, the things that they recommend, because I would say mine is pretty generic because we haven't really used it. So,
sure.
What's it recommending? Let's see. Boss Baby Back in Business, which is the Boss Baby show. iCarly, Johnny Test.
The original iCarly or the new one? New one's got swears in it.
Two seasons. I don't know.
That sounds like the old one.
Yeah, because the new one would be on one of their services. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, sorry.
Yes. Anyway, I mean, they're all fairly new and innocuous shows. They have the top 10 on here, which is also Melon.
New.
Yes. So now you can see that other kids are watching the same stuff. Coco Melon, Johnny Test, Ridley Jones, Kung Fu Panda 2, or Kung Fu Panda and Kung Fu Panda 2, Home, Wish Dragon, which I never heard of, Boss Baby Back in Business, The Miracles, and Rainbow Rangers.
Rainbow Rangers.
Rainbow Rangers is a show that is on Nickelodeon.
Okay.
That I know about because my kids are always watching Nickelodeon. So oh wow, they have a weird. So the categories they have here are new releases, get gems for you, spooky stories, mystery from books, adventures, friends, animated, funny, girl power. Under girl power, they have Star Trek Voyager. I didn't realize Star Trek Voyager was considered kids, but I guess why not, right?
Well, with the Captain Janeway animated series coming to Nickelodeon, I can understand where that connection is being made. I don't know that I agree, but I see where the connection is being made.
Maybe they planted the seed by putting that there. That kind of makes sense.
Yeah. Also, the new Lost in Space show, or newish Lost in Space.
That's
show.
under girl power.
No, that's under.
Oh, okay.
That's under. Okay. I'm just saying that's under action.
I was gonna say, there's something about Will that I missed in that show.
I also thought that show was a little bit grown up, but I don't know.
I agree. Just because it stars a kid doesn't mean it's a kid's show.
Right.
I think the other question is, like, kids is a very broad term, right? There's I have, for those who haven't seen me talk about this before, I have a 2-year-old and a 9-year-old, right? So what is appropriate for, well, they end up watching the same stuff right now, but theoretically what's appropriate for one is not appropriate for the other. Or actually, I would show because I'd show my 2-year-old much worse stuff than I'd show my 9-year-old. I'm kidding, but I'm sort of kidding, because she's 2 years old. So if I sit there and I watch a movie that has a lot of violence in it or whatever in front of her, it's like she doesn't know what's going on. So
she's like, "Wow, I'm a baby."
Not literally, if you're a kid below a certain age, then what? But she certainly knows her shows, right?
Sure.
But if I'm sitting there watching like Law and Order SVU in front of her, she's just sitting there like, eating whatever, she doesn't know what it's about, so it's not like affecting her. But if my son
the context is way outside of her realm of understanding,
he would have a lot of questions that I wouldn't want to talk to him about. So so it's I don't know. There's a lot of there's a lot of subtlety in like what's good for kids and what's not good for kids. Yes, I guess I would want to report, but I would more so want to have communication with my kids in the first place about what it was they were watching, rather than getting a surprise. On the other hand, the way my son consumes YouTube stuff, but he always asks. But it's like, I'm sure other parents have been there. It's like, hey, can I watch this this video with Mario and Luigi on it on YouTube? Like, okay. But then, we don't sit there and screen every moment beforehand. So it is, it is a challenge. Everything that is on Netflix obviously has been screened to a point. I personally like for kids stuff because it's stuff I enjoy. HBO Max, because HBO Max has all the old cartoons, that I grew up with. So this morning, my son and I were watching the Jetsons, right?
Nice.
They have the original Scooby-Doo, original Jetsons, original all the Warner Brothers cartoons going back to the original Bugs Bunny. Like, not new. They have some new ones too. They have like newer generation of those things. But if you want to see like the first episode of Scooby-Doo from 1969, you can see it. Right. So
that's pretty cool, actually.
So I prefer, as the parent, I kind of prefer that stuff. But I realize what kids are watching today. They're watching more things like this. But
the cartoons
still,
are more fast-paced nowadays.
Fast-paced, boring. Nowadays, they do stuff with cartoons though that I don't think that they did as much when we were kids, which is that they try to make them interactive, even though obviously it's still a TV talking to you. And so my daughter's still fooled by that. So like Blue's Clues, she will watch the current Blue's Clues, and they'll be like, "So, do you want to join our band?" And she'll be like, "Yeah." Like, and then at the end of she was watching it today, and at the end of the show, like they're like, "So long," and she waved at the TV. She's like, "Bye."
Oh, that's so adorable.
And it's like, oh, that's so cute.
See, I was a jaded little kid by the time I was seeing Blue's Clues. Right, I was just like, don't talk to me, but I like this show. Keep going.
Yeah.
Continue.
So,
right. I already had a cigar in my hand. And I'm like, what is this?
I feel like they're more conscientious about, trying to cater to parents these days because they're, look, every generation is more protective of their kids than the prior one, and that's probably for the best. So, people are very conscientious now about what their kids are watching, to the point where, I don't know if either of you have seen this, but when you watch Nickelodeon, at least Nick Jr., which is what my kids watch all day long, before every show, they give you like a rundown of like why this show is good for you, which is really weird.
Interesting.
I've never seen anything like that
They're going to
before.
play like, before they air every show, they're like, so, and each play date with Peppa Pig, they say it's like a play date, but just if they're watching the episode of Peppa Pig, your kids will learn to appreciate the world around them and have a respect for nature. So, like, all these things when it's just like a pig running around. Like, look, come on, you don't need to give me any redeeming values, right? I mean, could you imagine if they did that with Tom and Jerry? On each play date with Tom and Jerry, you will
learn about mortality,
all about friendship as they blow each other up. So,
well, they kind of did that with PBS cartoons, though, right? Except for they came at the end. It was like you went through
late?
Yeah, it was already too late. It was like, they would go and do their thing, and someone died, and then you're like, oh, this is terrible, and they're like, see, and this is why you shouldn't play with batteries, and
like G.I. Joe.
Yes.
Oh yeah. They don't
like
do
G.I.
that.
The more you know.
Yeah.
That's NBC.
Yes, I have to.
Never mind.
Say that is one of the. I have to say they don't really do that anymore, and I appreciate it because it was such a guilt trip every time on all of those shows. Right? It was always like, don't play with your neighbor's dog. Don't do it. Like, don't do anything. You'll lose an eye. Like all this stuff. And
or
they don't
McGruff
give you
will
that
get you.
kind of guilt. Yeah, they don't. Right. They don't give you any. They don't do that kind of moralizing at the end of the shows anymore. But
yeah, you don't want to be scared of a big dog with a magnifying glass coming to investigate your murder or whatever weird stuff McGruff was up to.
McGruff, yeah.
They never talked about the types of crime that he was worried about, but they heavily implied, and they're things we can't talk about on this show. It's probably the reason why they were heavily implied and not said outright.
He'll come right through that door. I'm good. I'm not fighting McGruff.
McGruff scared me.
He was a business dog.
They don't do that kind of moralizing on kids' TV anymore, for better or worse.
Yeah.
But
and the PSAs are more about anti-smoking and your friends melting into a couch or whatever in the world that commercial is about.
They still don't realize that those things have the opposite effect, but whatever.
Yes, they do.
On the channels my kids watch, they don't have that because I guess they're too young to give them that kind of a complex.
It's a real bad idea.
It is.
But yeah, I mean,
media is complicated.
Yep.
TV is complicated. Finding out what your kids do is, okay, it's good to get an email, but I still think the best thing that parents could, like, the emails to save you from going and looking at their history. Better than that. Now, I think when you get up to like teenagers or like tweens, that's when they might have a level of independence where you'd be more interested in this.
Agreed. Because that's when some of the more complicated topics kind of come in.
It's also when they don't want to watch TV with mom and dad.
Yep.
Yes, probably so. So, yeah, I could see that, but then I wouldn't necessarily call that kids, because if you look into the kids profile, it's like really, it's elementary school kids, whereas you're probably getting into like, if you're worried about kids getting like more adult content that you'd want to discuss with them, then you're talking about, I think, middle school to high school.
Yeah. Well,
agreed.
At least in that case, looking at the watch history is a little easier because there's no hoops to jump through. You can just go to a profile's watch history. But here's a fun bit of trivia before we end. Did you know that the Jetsons take place in about 40 years?
Oh,
No.
we got a lot of catching up to do.
Yeah, we gotta get ready for whatever disaster forced them to build their houses up in the sky. There's a fun fan theory that the Jetsons and the Flintstones take place at the same time.
I saw that one,
the Flintstones are just the ones that are left down on the ground.
Oh wow, that's awesome!
Right? Isn't it good?
My
still
son,
can't.
by the way, loved the show.
It's hard not
he
to.
Loved it. But a lot of times they'll show him old things, and just the pace and the music of it won't be like as fast paced as he's used to. But he loved it because robot. Like, he didn't love it for the reasons that I loved it. I was like, oh, this is funny. And revisiting it as an adult, I was like, oh, this is very interesting. Either demonstration or critique of like the 1950s family, the way that it's very late 50s, early 60s family type of thing. But but like, he's not looking at it that way. He's looking at it as like, oh, flying car, awesome.
Yeah, it makes you wonder how they see it, because I know as a kid watching the Jetsons, I was like, we're so far from any of this.
Yeah.
And now we still can't get a car to drive itself.
Yep.
But
Beta 10 just came out for the Teslas.
But we're a lot closer to a lot of that technology. I'm pretty sure we could get things to look like how they do in the Jetsons now.
Sure.
But
we could build a house on a stick. Would we want to? I don't know. We have treadmills in airports.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just not on the outside of the house.
To build a Rosie. He specifically wanted to build a Rosie robot. He said, can we make a robot like that with Raspberry Pi and a 3D printer?
Oh, man.
Oh, see, now he's starting to put the pieces together.
That's a smart kid.
Yeah.
That's a really smart kid.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, that is our show. Thank you to those of you who joined us live. We always appreciate it. If you didn't and would like to in the future, Sunday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, you can go to f5live.tv/join us. Next week will be an exception to that because we will be at MetroCon all next weekend. If you follow us over on Twitch, we will be going live from the Haddo setup, showing off what we're doing over there on our Twitch channel, so definitely follow us over there, PLUGHITZ Live. If you're not able to join us live, that is okay. All of our content is available by going to PLUGHITZlive.com/subscribe. There you'll see all of our shows and all of the different ways that you can watch, listen, and follow along. Again, no show next week because of MetroCon, but we should be back unless I am missing a holiday in my head. We should be back on August 1st with a new show. And with that, until then, on behalf of the staff that's not here, I'm Scott.
I'm Alante.
That's it. Now you, Avram.
Oh, I'm Avram. I thought I already
We
did
didn't
it.
practice
Okay.
that.
Yeah, we didn't practice that.
Oh, sorry.
I thought 'cause I was
Anyway,
in the middle.
that's okay. Yo, that's
what
true.
I was
You
thinking
are in
too.
the middle.
That's why.
true.
That's why I hesitated too.
Your name's in the show, though, so I wanted to bookend. Anyway, until the next episode, ciao.
Peace.
Hello, YouTube. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of F5 Live Refreshing Technology. If you did, please subscribe to the channel down below, and of course hit the notification bell because we know that subscriptions don't mean much on YouTube anymore. If you've got topics that you'd like us to talk about in the future, please comment them down below. And if you'd like to not follow us on YouTube, there's lots of ways that you can follow along with our content by going to PLUGHITZLive.com/subscribe. There you'll see all of our shows and all of the ways that you can watch, listen, and follow along.